Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to week 2 of Hireology's 4th annual Elevate, the only human capital-focused event dedicated to retail automotive. My name is Jason Stein, publisher of Automotive News. Great to be here with you again in week 2 of this. For those of you joining us again, we're happy to have you back. And for those of you with us for the first time, we welcome you. We have an exciting lineup here for you to continue our focus on elevating the conversation around people operations at the dealership. And you know that last week, Hireology's CEO and founder, Adam Robinson, gave us an update on what COVID-19 and the resulting aftermath has done to create our new applicant economy and the impact that that's having on retail automotive. We also got to hear from industry leader Inder Dosanjh, the president of the California Automotive Retailing Group. The conversation focused on how we as an industry can center on our teams and the process to build those best teams to drive continued success in spite of 2020. It's not an easy practice, as you all know, for business leaders to build great teams, which is why Automotive News has made celebrating and elevating the successful teams at your dealership a priority and embarked on a partnership with Hireology around this topic, and we're thrilled to be part of it again. Well, 2020 has been a year of constant change, but one change we can all agree on is that the digitization of processes at the dealership is here to stay. Whether it be pulling more of the buying process online, better BDC management, better payroll management, marketing tools, or your hiring process, these are the key topics today. When looking at how best to support a team and build the best one, the systems and tools you have in place across your dealership are vital to your continued success. And today, in support of that, we're hearing from different partners supporting retail automotive, and we can better support the entire employee and consumer lifecycle hearing from them. Our first panelist, of course, needs no introduction. If you were with us last week, you saw him there. Adam Robinson is co-founder and CEO, as I mentioned, of Hireology, where he's on a mission to help businesses succeed by building exceptional teams and workplace culture. He's a nationally recognized keynote speaker, author of The Best Team Wins, Build Your Business Through Predictive Hiring, and a columnist for Inc. magazine. He's also 3-time finalist for EY Entrepreneur of the Year and named a top 25 HR industry game changer by Workforce magazine. Under his leadership, Hireology was ranked number 94 on the Inc. 500 list of America's fastest growing private companies in 2016. Welcome, Adam.
Thanks, Jason. Great to be here again.
Good to have you here. Joining Adam on the panel today is Tyler Anderson. Tyler joined Dealertrack DMS in June of 2019, bringing with him almost a quarter century of experience in the automotive industry. And in his role, Tyler has developed a partner-driven products that allow his team of professional experts to provide a best-in-class suite of integrated solutions. Through open source software and strategic partnerships, he has increased Dealertrack's core products, allowing for that seamless integration into hundreds of market options. Tyler, welcome.
Thanks a lot, Jason. It's good to be with you.
Our next panelist is a longtime member of the retail automotive community. We all know him very well. Peter Fong is the CRO of Orbee Auto, a leading marketing cloud company designed exclusively for the automotive industry. Peter brings more than 26 years of industry experience to this conversation, having held numerous executive level sales, marketing, brand management positions at Ford Motor Company and Chrysler Group, in addition to his former position as the Senior Vice President of Dealership Operations at NADA. Welcome, Peter. Good to see you.
Pleasure to be here, Jason.
And our final panelist is Elizabeth Schillo. Elizabeth serves as Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Netchex. With 15 years of partnership with business leaders around HR tech solutions, Elizabeth is very passionate about creating employee programs that work for the entire organization, that engage high potential employees, improve retention, strengthen internal mobility and career pathing, and build managers who are excellent at what they do. Elizabeth, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Thanks, Jason. Great to be here.
So let's start with a bit of an overview. I mentioned it in the opening. 2020 has been the year that none of us obviously expected. What have your respective companies seen as far as how this has impacted your business and the business of the dealerships that you support? Let's start with Tyler.
Well, it's been an interesting year in the sense that obviously we were all impacted, but some regions of the country were impacted differently at different times and things like that. So early on in the pandemic, it looked like certain areas were getting hit really hard, and other areas were still functioning almost as normal. But eventually, I think it rolled everywhere. What we really noticed though is that the dealerships that were already kind of digitally forward thinking in their mentality were able to quickly respond and quickly adapt to what COVID challenged with them. And so, those pivots were made really quickly by some dealers, and other dealers really struggled. So we've helped the ones that have been struggling, and we've watched the ones that were already kind of prepared in advance thrive a little more.
Peter, you've seen plenty in your years in the business. You haven't seen this. What's happened, and what's your reaction to all that's gone on over the course of the last 6-7 months?
Well, so it's hard not to think back at my Chrysler days when we came out of bankruptcy, went through cash for clunkers, and as everybody has pointed out, that even pales in comparison to what happened initially for the first few months anyways. COVID obviously hit everybody, and not just the dealer organization, but the entire, world for that matter. At Orbee, it wasn't much different than what our dealer partners went through, in that we had to take a look at our organization, and like many dealerships had to furlough employees and basically hunker down, get in the foxhole, and hope that the people surrounding you are the people that will get you through this. And that's exactly what happened. Our playbook was no different than many dealers who had to lay off certain people, or at least furlough them, in many cases bring them back. Maybe not 100%, but in the case of Orbee, we went down to a handful of individuals, but were able to really take advantage of focusing on IT and software development to make us stronger when we came out of it. So just like we saw with the retail organization after the first few months, June, July, in many cases were record months for dealers. And the same thing applied to Orbee, where we came out of it very strong, and we're better positioned to help our dealer partners with the adversity that they're facing every day. So negative at first, but obviously came out of it very positively.
Elizabeth, give us your view of the landscape.
Yeah, I think the biggest shift has been internally for Netchex. Our teams were really field-based. So they spent a lot of time traveling and with prospects and clients. And to Tyler's point about seeing different impacts in different parts of the country, it was very different for us, where it seemed like nationwide our reps couldn't travel, and if they were willing to, our customer base and prospect base was uncomfortable having virtual strangers come meet with them. And so a big part of our shift was around using technology and tools ourselves, whether it's Zoom or sales tools, cadence tools, to be able to drive our business and manage it during that time. And I think that really speaks from a dealer perspective to Tyler's point around organizations who are digital forward and technology centric have really been able to navigate this quicker, where organizations who were starting to step into that have really had to condense their adoption into just a couple months, where others may have had weeks. So I think the biggest piece that we've seen has been the change in work for us and for our customer base, assuming that they are still working, they're working largely in a different way, or in a face-to-face way with a lot more precautions.
Adam, for the benefit of those who were not on the call that we had last week, the event that we held last week, maybe give a bit of the snapshot of where you see the world right now, and as it relates to Tyler, Peter, and Elizabeth's thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, having had a front row seat to what's happened from the employment side here, I mean, I can tell you that there's been nothing like this ever in terms of a dip and rebound in employment in this business, in any of our lifetimes, that's for sure. I mean, three things became apparent as a result of this pandemic and impacted the dealership's business model. I talked about them in last week's session. Number one, I think dealers understand now that their team is their most critical asset, and that is even more true, as Peter alluded to, in tough times like these. The second thing I think we've learned is no matter what the applicant economy looks like, there will always be hard to fill roles. The roles we hire for, the true top performers are always in demand. That's both fixed and variable and executive roles. The best people always have opportunity. And so now more than ever, we have to take our game to the next level to attract and retain the right people. And third, as was the case in 2008 and 9, those leaders and executive teams that focus on their team and put their people at the center of their business model are going to emerge the long-term winners. So we lost nearly 50% of the jobs in this industry over that 3-month trough to furlough or outright downsizing. And, you know, for me, the biggest learning has been, and we talked about this last week, that we can do more. We can sell more cars with better margins with 5 to 10% fewer heads than we thought we could. And I talked about at last year's retail forum, I thought it would take, you know, some kind of external factor, some event, to economic circumstance to force dealers to rationalize their staffing structure. And boy, here it is. And I think dealers like this new reality of record profits and fewer head count per car sold. So whether they were forced to do it or do it proactively, it's been done. And I think we're in a new normal of employment in the industry. And I think we're going to see efficiency gains that are permanent, finally, in the way we do business.
Peter, Adam's given us a lot to think about there. But when you go back to 08 and 09, as you referenced too, could you have imagined the kind of change that would occur? And I guess specifically around the consumer buying in the servicing world because of COVID-19. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's where the greatest impact of COVID has affected everybody in this business. I mean, obviously for the last, probably 10 years, we've seen all the data that shows that all the consumers start their purchase experience online. Well, obviously COVID changed that. I mean, just in my estimation and talking to a lot of my OEM contacts, only a third of the dealers were really prepared with a digital online retailing tool, which I was shocked. Even some of your greatest dealers, I mean, they were dabbling in it. They were starting to explore them, but truly only a third of them. Actually, it depends on the OEM, so that's probably number is low, but maybe let's say at least half of them, only half of them had the tool. Now consumers are coming to the website. So think of, instead of the showroom floor where you had customers coming to the showroom floor, to the, your parking lots and you're getting greeted, more than ever, you have first-party leads coming to your websites. And this is probably the most exciting opportunity for dealers, because and that's where the human capital opportunity is, because now there's a whole new breed of candidate that we can bring into this industry, something that we've been wanting to do for a long time. Well, we'll always have those stayed positions in general manager, service parts, fixed ops, body shop, but digital marketing today has become more important than ever, because most of the dealers will tell you that their record months in June and July could have probably been August if they had the inventory. It was all because of digital. And really, the issue isn't the leads being generated anymore, because frankly, most of these digital online retailing tools are really good lead generators. In some cases, that's all they are, because consumers, now that the country has started to open up, depending on where you are, they're starting to kick tires again, wanting to test drive again, and more consumers are wanting to go back to the old way of buying a car. Now, not to say that we're going to go backwards on digital retailing, but right now it's more important than ever to understand what the consumers are doing on your own website. And the first party leads are now more important than third party leads, frankly. And that's the opportunity, because it's a different breed of people that we can bring into the industry. Frankly, I'd argue that you'd hire a kid right out of college. All those kids that had that awful 2020 graduation, many without jobs. If you've got a degree in almost anything, marketing, business management, finance, computer science, you can train these candidates, these new hires, to learn digital marketing, because most dealers still don't understand exactly how they can harness the data from all these website visitors to leverage a more effective lead that will translate into a sale. That's why there's record-breaking months, because they're getting more leads than they've ever had. So it's a huge opportunity. I think it's why Kristen mentioned it to Adam. Hey, you think you two can talk about human capital management and digital retailing for probably 3 hours? So, I have a lot to say about it, but in a nutshell, that's how I feel about it.
Tyler, I saw you nodding in agreement with what Peter was saying. Let's go back to his point about dealerships being ready for the digitization piece of it. You alluded to it earlier too. Expand on that a little bit more, and maybe now how it's related to that changing consumer. You got to get up to speed in a hurry here, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I heard Peter say the word opportunity like 15 times or something like that.
Yes.
I wasn't counting exactly, but I do think there have been some really interesting opportunities. And we had a digital retailing, suite of products, and the demand for those products, around March and April went skyrocketing, very, very high. The thing that I thought was the most interesting opportunity that we were afforded was, the Dealertrack Ready Sign product was under development. So we were already kind of working on this before COVID hit. When it was clear that COVID was going to have a major impact, we accelerated. We actually deprioritized other products and accelerated this. And this is basically an e-contracting solution with our Dealertrack F&I business unit. So I have a stat here that between mid-April and mid-July of 2020, e-contracting grew 94%, and the number of contracts signed remotely rose by 97%. So the word opportunity really applies there, because we've been really working for years on trying to get this e-contracting to the point that it's at now. There were certain industries, the banking industry, there were certain states that were kind of really holding us up in a lot of ways, that were requiring wet signatures and duplicate forms. And some of those resistances came down, as certain states saw that other states were still selling cars, and the dealers in those states were seeing revenue. They realized that they were holding things up a little bit. And so we saw a lot more compliance around the idea of e-contracting. So that was an opportunity that COVID, brought the whole industry's way.
So that leads us to a staffing question. If this is the way the world is right now, and Elizabeth, what have you seen from those HR tech solution side that's really changed? What's changing about the staffing model? And then Adam, I want your thoughts too.
I think probably the bigger question is what's staying the same about it. And so as you think about staffing, I think you are, to Adam's point, you are still fighting for top talent regardless of the economy. Those people are always in demand. I think companies are also looking at how they can cross-train their employees that they've kept to be able to fill voids that were left by furloughs or layoffs. And so if you think about Peter's point around digital marketing, a year ago, in many cases, digital marketing would have been seen as like supplemental or advanced, where now digital marketing is probably the most critical way that you meet your warm leads, because they aren't necessarily coming face to face yet, or if they are, they're taking they're social distanced and they're staying 6 feet away, but you can connect through a computer or through a chat tool much quicker. I think that you're also going to see companies who are really focusing around KPIs for roles that they haven't as much. So, in the dealer world, sales has always had really strong KPIs. Service has always had really strong KPIs. Digital marketing in many ways has been like, hey, deal with the leads that come into you. And I think now you'll start to see more intentional marketing spend. You'll start to see more intentional teeing up of leads to get them in the right hands. So I think overall, the staffing world as a whole becomes a lot more focused on, hey, how do we make sure that for the employees that we've been able to keep, that we want to be able to retain and grow with us as we come back from whatever this looks like? How do we make sure that those people are focusing all their time and energy into the areas that drive the business the most? Where a year ago, I think in many cases, people focused on important things, but didn't necessarily know the metrics that they were trying to achieve in order to be able to drive their piece of the business forward.
Adam, when we think about staffing, I'm guessing dealers are going to be thinking differently about who is on staff and thinking differently about their teams. What have you seen?
Yeah, I think that the biggest pleasant surprise for me has been that dealers are reimagining the job descriptions in this industry right now. And so, in last week's discussion, I likened it to the business model of the one price dealer, which, as a percentage of total dealerships, 10 to 15%, right? Still a real minority in terms of business model. But the thing that one price dealers do to make that business model work is they combine accountabilities into a single role. And so it is more common in one price dealerships to see the salesperson able to quote on the trade and approve without getting anyone else involved, to offer financing options right there on the showroom floor off of some kind of a tablet device, and have their pay plans reflect that they're doing more of that, which, by the way, drives a better customer experience because no one wants to sit in the showroom for 5 hours. And so, I think there's an acceleration to cross-training and reimagining the roles that is going to continue to drive bottom line in the right direction. Because when your people have access to the data they need to serve the customer, when they can quote a trade or offer financing or desk most of the deal directly with the customer, we're not passing customers off from cubicle to cubicle. Everybody wins there. And of course, it's a recipe for fewer headcount, higher wages, and happier, higher retention on the employee side. So I think dealers had to figure out how to do it because we just couldn't afford to keep everybody. So we had to cross-train it. And I think, one price was the pioneer in combining roles. I think you're going to see more traditional full negotiation dealers do it this way. I think it has to happen that way.
Peter, you've seen variants and variations of dealer models up close. The way the dealerships are run.
Yep.
Your thoughts on just the changing thought process or changing roles.
So, I mean, when you say digital marketing, it's such a broad term, but I think what COVID has done is really defined it so that it really means it's somebody that can learn how to, have a skill set that ranges across several things, from being able to optimize leads that come into the website, being able to retarget them, remarket them with social ads. And it's not just somebody that they call the digital marketer dealership and runs a lot of reports and basically explains to all the general managers that these are the website counts, these are the VDPs and SRPs, all these common terms that have been used in the industry for so long are almost you can throw out the window, in my opinion. I mean, they're still important because obviously you still need to understand, what that means into translating a lead into a sale. But what we can do now is we can transform the industry by bringing in a new set of eyes. And as long as our current employees and dealerships accept that there are people that are probably more knowledgeable and smarter about this stuff and they embrace them, they can be on a winning team. I mean, it's nothing different than what I kind of, managed my whole career on. A leader surrounds themselves with people smarter than them so that they can take their organization to the next level. So this is no different now, where dealers have an opportunity to bring the right person into their organization or repurpose, as Elizabeth and Adam said, repurpose somebody that has skills. And somebody had a computer science. I know this one guy who's a new car sales manager that had a computer science undergrad. He's the perfect the person that kind of sets the new culture in the organization, because that's the other issue with digital retailing. It requires such a major shift in culture within an organization in order for it to work, because the number of employees in a dealership have been doing things the same way. And I think it's a great, again, opportunity to make sure that we're bringing in a new breed of candidates into the dealership with the knowledge so that this stuff comes second nature to them. Because there's a lot of smart kids like my kid here at UVA who wants to go to Wall Street as a finance major, but I'm trying to push him to digital analytics and computer science. And he does have an interest in that. So I think that the best thing we could do is help our dealers educate someone in their dealership or somebody that they can hire fresh out of college that doesn't have a job and really take their organization to the next level.
Tyler, COVID or non-COVID, how is technology going to change going forward within the dealership, and how are dealers going to use it in a way they haven't really before? What are the advancements that are coming?
Well, I think so much of it is going to be, tying back to what Adam and Peter were just saying, getting the right information to the right people at the dealership. And if some of the dealership dynamics are changing, and some of the personnel makeup is changing, making sure that we, companies like Cox Automotive are providing the tools and the data and the things that they need to make, actionable decisions in their daily lives. And so, so much of what we're focused on right now isn't so much just trying to, regurgitate as much data as we can to the dealers. It's more about trying to find those actionable insights within the data, packaging it in a way that we can get it to the right people in the dealership in the right way, timely way, within the tools that they're already working in, things like that. So I think so much of what we're focused on is helping with the processes that are going to allow these, in some cases, new people, slightly different people within the dealership, be able to make decisions in a timely way and serve these customers in a more digital format than they have in the past. So I really do think that's kind of what the direction things are going.
So let's move a little bit away from COVID and continue to look toward the future, whether it's virtual or in person. Upcoming NADA 21 will at least roll out a number of different examples for dealers in terms of technology and how to support dealers. We've all walked the floor at NADA before. You've seen your share of different systems that support dealers. What's the most important thing, and Tyler, I want to ask you, what's the most important thing in terms of plugging solutions together for dealers? What should they be looking for? If it's not this NADA, it's the next one.
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned in my introduction, I've been in the industry for 25 years, which is hard to believe, but I think my first NADA was 1998, and I've missed only one since then. So it's kind of been interesting to see how they've evolved a little bit over time, but how also they've stayed the same. What I've noticed over the 25 years is, dealers are always going to be really attracted by, some of the shiny objects and some of the exciting technology that a lot of the innovative companies bring to NADA. And I've been part of those exciting companies, those smaller startups that can kind of innovate on a very specific, solution and things. And that's a great place to be. What I would tell dealers to make sure that they watch for is just that those innovative technologies are mature, that the company is on solid footing and is going to be there for the long haul, and that they can integrate, that they have things like APIs built out so that they can integrate with some of the larger players, your DMS companies and things like that. So, we found many dealers, especially the dealer groups, kind of like this concept of one throat to choke, for lack of a better term. And so they tend to like to work with the larger companies that have multiple solutions that are already kind of integrated, and they know they can kind of go to one company and say, hey, this isn't working right, or that's not working right, and they kind of have one point of contact. So that's where companies like Cox Automotive can really shine. But I think it's always going to be important to have new innovative companies that keep us all on our toes, frankly, and I'm always excited to see what some of those new companies are doing too.
Adam, at NADA earlier this year, Hireology, Dealertrack, and Netchex announced an integration between hiring, payroll, and DMS. Why was that important for dealerships in your view?
Well, big picture, Jason, I think that in the automotive retail sector, what we're seeing is the natural evolution of the system of record for the people side of this business from the DMS to some form of HRIS platform. And so, 5, 10, 20 years ago, we pulled the pay right out of the DMS. We're running payroll in the DMS. It had all the unit RO volume, the commissions, all the flag items, all in there. And as the payroll industry grew, and it was no longer just ADP and Ceridian and a few others, but you've got, companies like Netchex on the market and others really evolving the HRIS industry to do far more to meet the needs of the employee as a customer, just like the DMS is evolving to meet the needs of the car buyer or service buyer as the customer. As that's happened, dealers have increasingly wanted to have more sophistication in how they manage their people. And so you're seeing the center of gravity moved toward HRIS platforms as the people management tool. So the DMS is still going to do the things the DMS is great at. So Dealertrack will help you run your business and be exceptional at doing that. But employee engagement and performance and payroll, time and attendance, all the HR, the growing burden of HR compliance, talent acquisition, pre-hire process, all of those things are a category that 10 years ago was not something dealers were saying, you know what's my solution for this? Because my solution was, I've got my DMS and we're kind of making it work. That's changed. And so the reason this partnership made all the sense in the world for the three of our companies is because respectively, my very skewed opinion, you've got the three best players in the business doing what they do best, respectively, coming together to deliver a solution to dealers that really moves the needle. And so we're excited to partner, of course, with Dealertrack and Netchex to bring these solutions to market. I think dealers win, and it's, we benefit, they benefit. And more importantly, the way we manage people in this business is starting to change because the systems are giving us new capabilities. I think that's a net positive for everybody.
And Elizabeth, where do you think this takes, where this can take the industry long term when it comes to talent operations?
Yeah, so to piggyback off of Adam's comment, I think, he talked about.
Oh, we may have lost Elizabeth.
While we're waiting for her to come back, let me just say at NADA this year, if it is in person, right, let's take our bets there. But I think I'd want to be in the sneeze guard business this year at NADA.
Or the plexiglass.
The plexiglass industry is really the place you want to be right now. I think you're going to see Max sneeze guard wherever you go. So that's the innovation that we all need right now.
Peter, let me ask you, how will better tools or systems help a dealership attract or retain talent? Make that connection for me.
Yeah, so it's just like hiring a trainer. If you don't have the right tools, you can't make that person you're training a better person. So it's the same applies to a dealership. I think it's important now more than ever to hire the right people. Let's say that dealers believe that they need to hire digital marketers. We need to make sure they give them the right tools so that they can help the general manager, the sales manager, used car managers do their jobs. Because at the end of the day, as long as they can successfully do their jobs with the efforts of a, say, so-called new car or digital manager, it makes it a more synergistic organization. And the way they can do that is obviously to give them the right tools. And right now it should be all about first-party data. Because right now dealers have no problems getting leads because of what COVID has done. Aside from COVID, but also all the digital retailing tools that are out there, they have done a phenomenal job of providing more leads for dealers. Now you got to harness that data because you know exactly what that customer is doing. There's technology out there that allows you to build shopper profiles and use retargeting tools that you can go do what Nordstrom does to us every day or Best Buy. In many ways, what's happening now is the auto industry is catching up to all these industries outside of automotive that have been doing all the things that could possibly be done a long time ago, but we're finally playing catch up. So, and those are the things that are appealing to the fresh out of college that are getting computer science degrees, digital analytics. So they want to be able to utilize what they've learned and help an organization do better. And what better organization than a dealer that wants to hit a number every month so they can get their bonuses, they can get their obviously extra money from the OEM. So it's giving them the right tools and making sure that they aren't getting too many of the utilities in a Swiss Army knife and making sure you pick the right partners so that you can, provide your consumer the best results. It's no surprise that all these integrations are happening in the industry. Obviously Dealerstock and Automated, the last show, announced their partnership and acquisition. There's Auto Alert and AutoFi. There's what we did with Unite Digital to land a big OEM account. There's a number of integrations. And I speak to Sandy Schwartz, who used to say, and actually probably still the internal mantra, integration is innovation. And I know that's primarily for the multiple companies that Cox owns, to integrate for their customers. But there are many companies out there can serve their current customers because there's so much overlap that a dealer has, with the vendors that can come together and provide a better service to the dealer. That's where I think the onus is on vendors to make sure we partner with the right organizations to provide the right service to a dealer.
Elizabeth, welcome back. We'll let you finish your sentence from before. I had asked you about where some of these partnerships and integrations, to piggyback off what Peter just said, how that will change the industry long term when it comes to talent operations.
Yeah, so I think that integration is really critical. I think Adam's earlier comment before my internet kicked me off was around, you have the operator piece of the business and you have the talent piece of the business. And what we've tried to do in our partnership with Hireology, Netchex, and Dealertrack is bring those three together, where you can make smart decisions. And I think to Peter's point around integration, a lot of it is the immediate value that you find is ease of use. I think the piece that's often overlooked and the real power of integration is the data and insights that you can get out of it. All of us have been part of some meeting or group where you have 6 million spreadsheets and you're trying to pivot them all together to make sense of it. And I think the real power behind integrated technology is that you can actually go find the answer to the question that you were looking for, instead of pulling 3 things that partway answer it. And for a dealership, that's time that could be spent with customers. That's time that could be spent building marketing strategy. And so the information that you can get from that integration and then the faster decisions you can make from it can become a game changer from a competitive landscape perspective.
Let's switch gears for a second here and talk mobile strategy. We all know that the use of, or the digitization that's occurred in the last 6 or 7 months around mobile has increased multi-fold depending on your generation. How critical is a mobile strategy for making sure that your dealers optimized? And Tyler, let's start with you.
I think it's really critical. And I think whether it's the dealer's employees' ability to communicate with their customer, or even their ability to kind of communicate with their vendors and the products and tools that they use to do their job, making those things available on a mobile format, I think is really important. And we're aggressively looking at various solutions for the dealers, both them being able to use our tools in a mobile environment, but also them being able to communicate with their customers in a mobile environment as well.
Tyler, what's your read on how equipped dealers are both internally and externally to handle that right now?
Not very well, to be honest. It's changing pretty rapidly, but there's significant challenges in making certain tools available in a mobile environment. But I think COVID, like a lot of things, is going to change that as well. It's already having an impact in terms of making it so that dealers can access certain things from a home office environment and things like that. So we accelerated a lot of things in April, May, that frankly I think would have been on the back burner for maybe another year or two, that we could just see that employees at a dealership were going to need to be able to access things without being sitting at a terminal at the dealership, and be able to kind of get the reporting that they need, be able to communicate and look at the numbers that they need. And so, yeah, I think we have a ways to go. There's certain of our applications that are very mobile ready, but I think there's still room for us to improve there.
Peter, how ready is the industry for this?
It's like I said before, some dealers are really good at it. I have a Nissan dealer where I get my car serviced, and obviously, other than the first few months of COVID, where it was difficult until the state laws allowed you to open up for sales and service, I pretty much could get service done completely with my cell phone via text messaging through products like Xtime out there that are just phenomenal. And some dealers are doing a great job, but I think, as Tyler mentioned, some of the products out there are working, some of them aren't. And I think it's obviously the onus is on the vendors to obviously improve that, because nobody's going back. A lot of what has happened, first of all, Carvana and Brooms of the world have shown the industry that people want to buy things online, just like you buy on Amazon every day, just like I pretty much buy everything online these days. So nothing's going to be different for consumers other than those that still want to go in and shop. You have to provide as much of this stuff on mobile as you possibly can. And I believe everybody recognizes that. I mean, I text with everything, even the chats, whether it's Goo or all these chat features, you can pretty much get your answers to anything 24/7. And that's changing dramatically in the industry, and it's only going to get better. So, that's why I think the integration with as many different, widgets that a dealership has, I call a widget a vendor, where they can connect with each other is the most important thing that a dealer can do. The chat feature to the credit credit miners and 700 credits of the world that obviously gives you a credit worthiness. You can tie it into your digital retailing tools. We've got a customer in Stockton, California, a dealer group that generates 80% of their leads just because of the integration we have with Roadster. And that applies to all the digital retailing tools, because a lot of the consumers are starting and stopping in the process. So what you need to do is follow up with them, knowing when they're ready to buy, how many vehicles they looked at, which ones they looked at, so that you can do exactly what Nordstrom's and Best Buy does, serve up exactly what they're looking at. That all can be done. And that's why it's exciting to integrate with others that can, allow you to connect all the silos in a dealership, so that data is literally serving one purpose: helping you find the person that wants to buy the car at the right time.
So that implies that the data that's going to come in for the dealer to use is going to be richer than it ever has been before.
It's staring them right in the face, literally. I mean, it's their first party data. That's why it's amazing how you can show a dealer, even with something as simple as email marketing. I mean, I'm sure many on this call know who Marketo is. They sold to Adobe for $4.5 billion. What do? Email marketing, targeted email. It's not rocket science. So we can help dealers target the customers that are looking at a very specific vehicle, and that data is sitting on their website. That's why I think the king is first party data. That's what they have to focus on today.
So Elizabeth, with the inputs of data that Peter talks about, how can data play a better role in operational management and frankly, back to the talent issue?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, we talk about this at Netchex a lot. It's easy to have lots of good ideas. And I think one of the nice things that has come out of COVID, to all the points that have been previously made, is that everyone got creative with what they could do. The challenge when you have lots of good ideas is that you can't do them all well. And so I think, to your question around data, it lets you prioritize the areas where you can have the biggest impact. And then you can start to look across your talent pool and say, am I hiring the right people? Am I developing the right people? Am I focusing them on the right things? Have I set clear goals with metrics around that? Or do we have a bunch of really well-intentioned people who are super excited and passionate about being here and are working on a million things kind of scattershot? And so I think a lot of the prioritization that comes out of that is really the value. Tyler used the word, he said something about data to insights before.
Oh, last time we heard that beep go off, we know what happened to Elizabeth. The bell went off again for Elizabeth. So as she resets, Adam, let me just pass this over to you then. If data is leading the way, what kind of metrics should we be looking for when it comes to talent operations?
Yeah, I think it's important to know where you stand as a dealer relative to your peers in the business. So, dealers know well their 20 group data, their composite data, either from their manufacturer or from NADA, and you strive to be in that top quartile. You know where the best are, and you can benchmark yourself relative to it. So the first thing to focus on is just knowing what the benchmarks are. And in the talent game, it's not that different from the lead game. I mean, remember, just like cars or products that have to be retailed online, so are jobs. Jobs are digital products. You're retailing them direct to the consumer. And the world of it's becoming a first party data game, just like it is with consumer leads. Dealers get leads for jobs seekers and never look at them a second time. It's just a treasure trove of information. So when you start to realize that, you can start to look at different metrics like applicant review rates. How long does it take me to open up an applicant lead and respond to them? And the punchline here is, if it's taking you longer than 48 hours to open and respond to a job applicant, they're gone. They're going to be working for someone else. So number one is just lead response time. Critical on the retailing side for cars, critical on the retailing side for jobs. Then you want to look at your hiring velocity metrics. How long does it take to get an open position filled? So with an average gross margin production per head of about $1,200 now is the new number. Every day that job goes unfilled is $1,200 of opportunity cost. You'll never get that sellable time back. So every day you can shrink your cycle time is a day you can put $1,200 in gross profit on the board. It's no different than inventory turns. Faster is better. Jobs are inventory. They produce gross profit. As you turn them quicker, the number of days you can produce that gross profit goes up. So if you shrink your time to hire by 5 days, you're adding $6,000 back per job for every job you hire every year forever. I mean, show me a lower hanging fruit than that. These are a couple of the most important ones. And if you get back to people quickly, and track it as a management KPI, and you understand how quickly you're filling your open roles and seek to shrink that as a management KPI, you're going to be in a far better position than you were before you started looking at these things.
All right, just a note to Elizabeth, we can certainly see you, but I don't know if you can hear us or not. There we go.
I can hear you.
Oh, you can. Fabulous.
Yes,
Okay.
and I'm on a different device now, so that's also the power of switching to mobile.
Just in time for digital mobile use. Yes, exactly. Peter, thoughts on what Adam had to say?
So clearly, the leads, I'm so passionate about the human capital side of the business. And when I think before everybody came on, I was talking to Kristen and Adam about how it's kind of deja vu to be on this panel, because when I was at NADA, there were two areas that I was very passionate about. And my role basically was to help with the education and training of all 16,000 members of NADA. And the two areas that came up repeatedly, whether it was a 20 group or whether it was an academy student coming through the class, were the areas of human capital and the areas of digital marketing. And when it comes to human capital, how can we hire better than we've been doing for many years? So all the things that Adam mentioned, and I met Adam about 3 years ago, and it was like drinking the Kool-Aid within 30 seconds. Because, like any organization, I spent many years in the military, went to Ford and big organizations, ran startups. If you don't spend the time to hire the right people, you're not going to get the results. And you're just going to spend wasted time trying to find another replacement. So, the metrics, in my opinion, with respect to digital marketing have to change, because I think that the new hires that we're looking to bring into the industry are folks that we want to challenge the status quo, are folks, like I mentioned earlier, that are going to be smarter in many ways than the people they're working for, but in a good way, in areas that will complement what the state general managers and parts and service and F&I managers have done so well, but utilizing tools to make their jobs easier. Because in many ways, there are so many manual processes happening in dealerships still today. Technology and software can make lives easier for everybody. I mean, the example I gave you earlier when we came on, Jason, I mean, my whole life changed. COVID hit in March. I was in New York City on some business, and then for 3 months, I couldn't go to the gym. Everybody that knows me, I work out at the gym at 5:30 every morning. Well, guess what? I started listening to your Daily Drive podcast, and I think I listened to 15 straight in a row because I could with my mobile phone, and I could do Zoom calls and Google Meets from anywhere. I mean, if there's anything we've proven is that we can be productive working from home. And I know there's different philosophies on how it's happening, but mobile technology and technology in general has proven to the world that we can be a very efficient organization. Dealers can do the same thing. NADA, an organization that I was at for 3 years, I know in some of the meetings I was at, didn't believe we could work from home. Well, guess what? We can all work from home. I mean, it depends on the individual. And I would argue it goes back to the person. If you're an organization that doesn't believe you can work from home, you don't have the right people. You haven't chosen the right people. That's what I truly believe.
That's great. And of course, Adam Robinson was one of the guests on one of those daily drives. Tyler Anderson, if I look at NADA 2022 in Las Vegas, right? What are we all talking about? I know it's hard to predict the future, but what do you see as being some of the core trends for automotive retail going forward?
Well, I think this kind of goes back to some of the things that have been said throughout this webinar is we're not going to be able to put the toothpaste back in the tube, and so I think a lot of the trends that COVID has kicked off in terms of digital retailing, but even beyond digital retailing, and just allowing consumers to be able to do the car purchasing in more of the format that they really want to. I think that's going to be the trend that we're going to see really over the next couple of years. I think it's just going to accelerate, to be honest, even as we come out of this, hopefully, here in the spring and things like that. I think, consumers have, tasted the difference, and they don't want to go back. And I think they're going to want even more.
Elizabeth, what's your view into the crystal ball?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything Tyler said. I think the other part of this is work will look different, right? Like work will look different for consumers. It will look different for dealer employees. And so I think making sure that employees, to Peter's very beginning point of your most valuable resource is your team, that your team is equipped with the right tools to be able to do the right work. And I think you'll see that continue to be a trend as people work remote or whatever the new future of work becomes to look like. Making sure your people have the tools to be effective is as important as hiring the right people.
Peter?
So I have some thoughts that I think, just based on some of the projects we're working on, that will happen here sooner than later. For many years, the OEM, whether you call it tier 1, tier 2, and 3 integration, has been something that they've been trying to work on. Some organizations don't even believe tier 2 needs to exist. In that case, there are some OEMs that don't have a tier 2. They just have OEM tier 1 and they have the tier 3. I believe that with this first-party data and the changing environment that we have now, there's a much better opportunity for OEMs to work directly with their partners, the dealers. Not that tier 2 isn't important. I mean, I was a regional manager, and the importance of tier 2 every month to close out the month was there, and we still, many dealers and OEMs do it today. But I think with the data that's out there today and the tools that are out there, there's a better way to create that true customer data portal with the integrations of the DMS systems out there, with DMS, tools like Hireologies, and also the tools that a company like Orbee and Dealertrack can provide, that we're going to be able to provide a better look at the entire ecosystem with the data that's out there. So I'm just looking at my crystal ball. I think I'm going to, just based on some of the projects working on, I think there's going to be far greater collaboration with the OEM down to the tier 3 level, which has not been the case for many years, as long as I've been working with dealers.
Tyler, you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that's a good point, Peter, about the kind of the OEM to tier 3. I think there's going to be more collaboration in that area as well.
Great. Adam, you talked about this a little bit last week, but I want to bring it up here. You said dealers are best suited to thrive in this economic situation in 2020 because they learned to focus their teams in 2008 and 2009. What do you hope they take away from the experience of this year?
So what I hope happens as a result of the challenges that we've had to navigate this year is dealers remember what was possible when they were forced to do it differently. So my fear is that at some point in the future, we return to semi-normal times. I think I've told you, Jason, I think we're 9 months away from normal, right? I think the economy is going to be bouncing off the water for a good long while until the vaccine's widely distributed and the election's over. But, I think times will return where it's business as usual. Let's just call it that. And if we're not careful, it will be business as usual, but the profits of the summer of 2020 will be long gone. And that means I'm going to throw bodies at problems instead of leveraging the technology that I've invested in and the learnings that I have from doing more with less. I just don't want to get back to the constraint-free world of flooding the sales floor with people and 10% of them are here at the end of the year doing well, and we're churning out 70% of the folks on the variable side every year. I want what I want is to be standing here a year from now talking to you saying, I think the management level of this industry, the leadership level, really understood that people are their only differentiated asset and that culture can't be copied. and that they know the role of a manager is to drive success from their people, and just look at what's happened. We've maintained lower headcount and higher productivity even in normal times. If that happens, the industry will be far more viable long run than it was, because I don't think I think margin suppression will come back. I think that trend is going to continue, and there's some other things that we're taking a look at that are going to impact the staffing model. I just hope dealers remember what they were capable of when the gun was to their head. Really amazing things have happened this year from an operational standpoint, things people said were never possible. And I don't want that to be lost.
Or even that things were accelerated, in the span of a few months, where some have predicted would take years.
Right, exactly. Right. So there's no way that you can have an all remote sales staff. There's no way that you can run a dealership with part-time salespeople. There's no way you can sell 18 cars a month per salesperson, paying them an hourly rate and doing F&I. There's no way. Well, all these things are happening in mass right now, right? It's happened.
And by the way, in June and July, dealers had more leads than they knew what to do with. I mean, literally had more leads. The challenge was at the end of the month, which leads to focus on. That's where technology comes into the picture, so that you don't have the lack of resources that are focusing on the leads aren't the ones that are ready to buy. So, it was amazing. It was no surprise to me when I heard from a number of dealers, and even, Automotive News covered it, profitable months in the history of organizations in June and July. And again, if they had the inventory, August probably would have been the same. But nobody was lacking in leads. It was like which ones to focus on. And that's where technology can help them focus with less people, and literally with the first party data right on their sites, being able to tell them who to go after. But it was not a problem generating leads.
Peter, I'm going to ask the same question of you. What do you hope the retail community takes from this experience?
Well, honestly, I think most, if not all of them, have really, really taken what's happened in the last 5 or 6 months seriously, because obviously it was an impact to not only their dealership employees, but the families of their employees, especially the ones that they had to furlough. I mean, it was heart-wrenching. And there are a number of dealers that just have done a tremendous job. Our dear friend Dave Kelleher from Philly, you've had him on. He's amazing. I mean, there's so many dealers out there that have done the same things, and I just embrace, the entire industry that has done stuff to help dealers. But I believe that a lot of them are really taking a look at what could be the next pandemic, or not so much pandemic, but COVID-19 it happens in cycles. Just like Mr. Welch at NADA used to always tell me, everything happens in cycles. And, back in 08 and 09, 10 years later, this hit. You never know what it's going to be. But just the different titles. We're dealing with, some of our clients have new positions called Retail Transformation Manager. When was that ever, on one of your job studies or your 20 group discussions, Adam? I mean, these are new positions where progressive dealers are looking at somebody that has the expertise, that can look across the entire organization and think about what's next. What can we be doing differently in our organization? And one of our clients has that person who was a former Ford, Nissan, VW guy that has had every job, and he's now the retail transformation manager for a big 30 rooftop dealer group. And that's encouraging, because that's the way you got to look at our business, and things are drastic. And that's not even going into autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, and all that's going to affect the industry dramatically. Just what's happened in the last 5 or 6 months are forcing dealers to think differently about what they will do differently within their organization. So I'm optimistic that it's changing, and nobody's going to look back and catch themselves, behind. And, they're on it now. I really believe that. They're a resilient group and a smart group.
Elizabeth, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that, if you think back to talent in 2008, 2009, that was really the time when organizations learned how do you maximize the impact that one person can have. And I think, in many ways, that kind of lean methodology has continued. I think that to all the conversations of today, moving forward, I think this will be the year of integration, where I think previously you had a lot of people, this person was an expert in this technology, this person was an expert in this software, it's all good, we never made it work together. And all these people are valuable in that they own these pieces of the process. I think the insights that come with the level of integration that dealers can get, the level of plugins that they can add, the level of value that they're able to provide to their customers and to themselves in making smart decisions. I think, fast forward, what I hope comes from this is that, like, 2008, 2009 taught us how to be lean. I think 2020 will teach us how to be technologically efficient, not same way, where we're getting the answers that we need to be able to move fast and make smart decisions to operate the business and develop people, as opposed to, having a lot of specialists that don't get to leverage the power of that integration.
Tyler.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said about this last question, especially. And I think what I hope that they take away from this year is that dealers can do more even with less if they really focus on kind of the people, process, technology, kind of three-legged stool, and not lose sight of the fact that all three of those are really critical. We're really obviously focused mostly on the technology and the software at Cox, but we're also trying to help them identify who the right people are and help them with the processes and the training on the processes and things like that, so that they can do that. But I really do think I've seen a shift, and I've seen a shift from the standpoint of dealerships reconsidering that kind of omni-channel sales experience that Adam alluded to earlier, where, early in my career when I was working with Lexus, way back in the early 2000s, they were exploring that sales process from beginning to end with one person that handled them all the way through F&I. It seemed like not too many other OEMs and dealers at that time jumped on board, but I think more of them have kind of experimented there. I think that's exciting in the sense that I think it'll potentially open up the door for dealers to hire maybe less a number of people, but higher caliber of people that can handle a lot of stages of the sale and not have these handoffs. And so I'm really excited about that if that continues to be a trend.
Adam, I'm going to leave the last word with you. Any final thoughts based on the discussion that we had here today?
Yeah, thanks, Jason, for moderating. Great discussion. I think that we're far from out of the woods in that consumers and dealers are a little nervous about what's coming. We have uncertain demand in the fourth quarter. I think we're wondering what's going to happen with the U.S. presidential election and whether or not new stimulus comes and what industries get support or not. And everything looks vapor locked right now from that front. So there's a lot of apprehension about that. And I know you've talked a lot about that in your publication. I think the thing that dealers should be doing right now is preparing for what works in any economy. And what works in any economy is putting their people at the center of their business model and asking themselves the question, do my people, the folks that keep the lights on, produce revenue and profit for us, do they have the tools they need to be successful? That means having the right information at their fingertips. It means the right kind of organization of the work that they're doing. It means the right kind of a pay plan and access to the systems that are going to help them be successful. And so if dealers can focus on that, then they are going to be prepared for whatever comes. And that would be my hope for where we are 6 to 9 months from now.
Excellent parting words. Thank you so much, Adam. Peter, thank you. Tyler, thank you. Elizabeth, I think you're still on with us from an audio standpoint. I think the bell rang for the third time. So we'll say goodbye to Elizabeth as well. But just want to thank everybody for participating today. Great conversation. As Peter said, probably could have gone for another couple of hours. This is a great continuation of our series that's focused on elevating human capital and really focusing on the retail automotive space and what that looks like going forward. Next week, we're going to close out our series by taking a look at new research from Hireology about what today's applicant is looking for. We're going to be joined by leading members in the industry from Facebook and Twitter as well. As a reminder, tomorrow there will be workshop sessions. If you signed up, you should have confirmation on your calendars. This will be a very conversational session amongst all participants, so try to find a location that best enables you for that. Video is preferred as well. And if you have any questions, please contact events@hireology.com. And with that, we'll say goodbye, we'll say thank you, and we'll see you next time.